Well, today the president honored the surviving Navajo code talkers at the White House and threw in a jab at Senator Elizabeth Warren of Massachusetts. He called her, as he often has before, Pocahontas, and was swiftly denounced for his insensitivity. CNN's resident genius / White House correspondent Jim Acosta put it this way, quote, White House press secretary says Pocahontas is not a racial slur. Fact check, it is. Apparently, Jim Acosta checked the official racial slur dictionary on that one. Senator Warren, of course, agreed. She described the insult also as, quote, a racial slur. Needless to say, Twitter erupted in applause. Busted! But wait, what's more offensive, jokingly using the name of a famous American Indian or spending almost a decade pretending to be an American Indian so that you can benefit from an affirmative action program designed to help actual American Indians? Elizabeth Warren did that. No one really disputes the facts of that case. Warren stole the identity of a historically oppressed group for her own gain. Talk about cultural appropriation. Good thing she didn't joke about it, though. That would have infuriated Jim Acosta. He would have been back at his racial slur dictionary. Well, today the president honored the surviving Navajo code talkers at the White House and threw in a jab at Senator Elizabeth Warren of Massachusetts. He called her, as he often has before, Pocahontas, and was swiftly denounced for his insensitivity. CNN's resident genius / White House correspondent Jim Acosta put it this way, quote, White House press secretary says Pocahontas is not a racial slur. Fact check, it is. Apparently, Jim Acosta checked the official racial slur dictionary on that one. Senator Warren, of course, agreed. She described the insult also as, quote, a racial slur. Needless to say, Twitter erupted in applause. Busted! But wait, what's more offensive, jokingly using the name of a famous American Indian or spending almost a decade pretending to be an American Indian so that you can benefit from an affirmative action program designed to help actual American Indians? Elizabeth Warren did that. No one really disputes the facts of that case. Warren stole the identity of a historically oppressed group for her own gain. Talk about cultural appropriation. Good thing she didn't joke about it, though. That would have infuriated Jim Acosta. He would have been back at his racial slur dictionary.
Jonathan.
Sarah, at the event that the president just did with the Navajo code talkers, he referred to Pocahontas being in the Senate. Why did he feel the need to say something that is offensive to many people while honoring the Navajo code talkers, these genuine American
I think
heroes?
what most people find offensive is Senator Warren lying about her heritage to advance her career.
Now, she said it was a racial slur. She said it was a racial slur. What is your response to that?
I think that's a ridiculous response.
Let me just follow up with that, because the president was speaking at an event to honor members of the greatest generation, people who fought in World War II, who are in their 80s and 90s now. And the moment had many people online asking whether the president lacks decency. What's your response to that notion?
Look, I think the president certainly finds an extreme amount of value and respect for these individuals, which is why he brought them and invited them to come to the White House and spent time with them, recognizing them and honoring them today. So I think he is constantly showing ways to honor those individuals, and he invited them here at the White House today to meet with them and to also remind everybody about what the historic role that they played many years ago. Kristen.
Why is it appropriate for the president to use a racial slur in any context?
I don't believe that it is appropriate for him to make a racial slur or
anybody
anybody
else. This is a racial slur, so why is it appropriate for him to use
I think,
that?
like I said, I don't think that it is, and I don't think that was certainly not the president's intent.
Does he see
I think,
political
again,
value
like I said, I think the more offensive, the most offensive thing.
racially?
I'm sorry?
Does he see political value in calling people out racially? Why use that?
Look, I think that Senator Warren was very offensive when she lied about something specifically to advance her career. I don't understand why no one's asking about that question and why that isn't constantly covered. See,
Put me on Syria.
If all the president did today was honor some of the last surviving World War II Navajo code talkers, there'd be no controversy at all. If all he did was honor them in front of a portrait of President Andrew Jackson, who signed the Indian Removal Act of 1830, which resulted in the deaths of thousands of Native Americans, it would certainly be noted, which it is right now. And he did do that, almost certainly not knowing it might provoke comment, which it has. However, the real uproar tonight comes from something he said while honoring the code talkers.
And I just want to thank you, because you're very, very special people. You were here long before any of us were here. Although we have a representative in Congress who they say was here a long time ago. They call her Pocahontas.
He was talking about Massachusetts Democratic Senator Elizabeth Warren, who joins us shortly. And although this was perhaps the most incendiary venue in which to use that term, it's hardly the first time he has.
Pocahontas! That's this Elizabeth Warren.
I call her Pocahontas, and that's an insult to Pocahontas.
And Massachusetts is represented by Pocahontas, right? Pocahontas. It may be Pocahontas, remember that. What an insult to Pocahontas, isn't it? I was being hit by Pocahontas, and Pocahontas is not happy. Elizabeth Warren, she's one of the worst senators. Who, Pocahontas?
Well, now candidate Trump has already been criticized for this. He's already been accused of using a racial slur. Today, when asked about using it at an event ostensibly to honor Native Americans who risked their lives employing their distinct language to help us win the Second World War, White House Press Secretary Sarah Sanders denied it was a slur at all. Here's what she said.
Is it appropriate for the president to use a racial slur in any context?
I don't believe that it is appropriate for him to make a racial slur or anybody else.
This is a racial slur, so why is it appropriate for him to use
I think,
that?
like I said, I don't think that it is, and I don't think that was certainly not the president's intent.
Does he see
I think, again,
value
like I said, I think the more offensive, the most offensive thing.
racially?
I'm sorry?
Does he see political value in calling people out racially? Why use that term?
Look, I think that Senator Warren was very offensive when she lied about something specifically to advance her career. I don't understand why no one's asking about that question and why that isn't constantly covered.
Well, joining us now is Senator Elizabeth Warren. Senator Warren, thanks for being with us. So the president referring to you once again as Pocahontas. I wonder, what was your reaction when you heard that?
You know, I really couldn't believe it, that there he was at a ceremony to honor Native Americans, men who had really put it all on the line to save American lives, to save lives of people, our allies during World War II. Really amazing people. And President Trump couldn't even make it through a ceremony to honor these men without throwing in a racial slur. You know, he thinks that somehow he's going to shut me up with that. And it's just not going to happen. It didn't work in the past. It's not going to work in the future. I'm going to keep fighting for all the issues I'm fighting for. And today in particular, the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, that's generating a lot of problems for the president.
Yeah.
And so he'd sure like to talk about something else. His tax bill, he'd sure like to talk about something else. The Congressional Budget Office score has now come out. More information about this tax bill, how it's going to be a big giveaway to billionaires, giant corporations, run up the debt by $1.4 trillion and raise taxes for people making less than $75,000 a year. He doesn't want to talk about any of that.
I want to ask you about those in just a moment. I do want to have you address, Sarah Sanders, as you just heard, defended the president's comments, saying, quote, what most people find offensive is Senator Warren lying about her heritage to advance her career. What do you say to that?
Look, I learned about my family the way that most people learn about their families. My brothers and I learned from our mother and our daddy and our grandparents who we are. And that's it. That's how we learned it. That's what we know.
And to the allegation that you were using this to advance your career?
Never. I never used it to get ahead. I never used it to get into school. I never used it to get a job. Look, this is just a way for Donald Trump to be able to try to get somebody talking about something other than what he's doing, which is advancing a terrible tax plan, trying to gut the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau.
Well, let's actually talk about the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, because it is now this kind of a bizarre drama which is surrounding the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. Do you believe the president was within his authority to appoint Mick Mulvaney as director? Because now there's two people basically saying they're the acting directors.
Well, you know, look, Donald Trump is trying to bring chaos to the consumer agency, but let's just start with the law. The Dodd-Frank law that was passed by Congress provides for succession. And the way it does that is it says there's a director. If the director is unavailable, the director has resigned, then the deputy director automatically becomes the director. There's no appointment. There's nothing fancy that has to be done. It just happens automatically. That's the law that Congress passed. And so Donald Trump claims, well, he can use something called the Vacancy Act that was passed a couple of decades before that. The problem with that is the Vacancy Act applied to all of the agencies that had been built before the time that the Vacancy Act was passed. But going forward, it would apply as a default unless Congress set up a particular succession plan for an agency, and that's exactly what Congress did. In fact, here's an amazing thing about the CFPB. In an earlier draft, the Congress had thought about, well, let's just do it under the Vacancy Act. That would have left the president, whoever it was, to be able to name someone when the director left. But then in the final version, the one that was voted on and signed into law, Congress said, no, we really don't want to do that. What we want to do is have it happen automatically. If the director's unavailable, it goes to the acting director. The reason for that, push that agency as far away from partisan politics as humanly possible.
Because the Republicans are saying it needs more oversight. You're saying essentially, well, you're saying that there's a reason it was set up the way it was, so it's not beholden to anybody on either political stripe.
And you know, that's been the idea behind banking regulation since the Civil War. When the very first banking regulator was set up back in the 1860s, the whole idea was to say, for example, the funding should not be done through politics. It should be done separately through fees and other mechanisms. And the reason was pretty straightforward. We didn't want a world where some giant national bank would lean on Congress, and then Congress would lean on the agency not to do the oversight that was necessary.
Senator Warner, finally, I just want to ask you about the reporting from the New York Times that the president is now privately questioning the authenticity of that Access Hollywood tape. We just spoke to the Times reporter who now says a third person has told her, Maggie Haberman, that the president has questioned the authenticity about this, and even suggested to one of the senators, maybe he would hire people to look into the authenticity. Does that make any sense to you, given the fact he's already apologized for what he said on it?
You know, look, he's already admitted what he said. I watched him during the debates, you know, when he talked about, well, it was just locker room talk and so on. But if this is a new age of accountability, where Donald Trump wants to be held accountable to the dozen or so women who came forward and said that Donald Trump had forced himself on them in various sexual ways, and he thinks it's time to get out there and decide to put his views out so we can have some real accountability, then bring it on.
Senator Elizabeth Warren, appreciate your